Hi, I'm Heidi with Onigo Stamping. Welcome to my craft corner. Today I'm going to be sharing how to create a card using die cut shapes like circles, triangles, rectangles. We're going to use those to create a really cool scene. All of the dimensions can be found on my website, onigostamping.weebly.com. You'll find the link to that in the description to this video. And all of the supplies that I'm using today can be found in my shop. That link is also in the description to this video. When you click on it, it's really easy. You'll see the whole supply list. You can order everything that's on the supply list, or you can go through and uncheck the boxes for the things that you don't need, and then just add it to your cart. All right, before we get started, if you don't have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator that you currently work with, I would love to be your Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. Just leave me a comment or send me an email and I will get back to you as soon as I can to see how I can help you. All right, Onigo, let's get stamping. So today's card doesn't have very much stamping on it. Instead, it uses die cut shapes to create a scene, a cloud with a bursting sunshine. For this, I'm going to be using a bunch of stitched dies. So I have the stitched shapes dies for circles, stitched triangles, and stitched rectangles. Sponge this. I'm just using a regular Stampin' sponge today. They come in packs of 3. You can see I just have 1 in here. This is what the full sponge looks like. I take this and I cut this into at least 6 pieces and sometimes even 8 pieces. So that's what it looks like when it first arrives. I've cut this large triangle out of Mango Melody. For my sunshine, I cut pieces out of Mango Melody and out of Daffodil Delight. So this one is Mango Melody, and I'm going to start by sponging on some Mango Melody on the edges. So grab my ink pad, and you can see I've already used these sponges, so they're kind of that color already. And I'm just going to dip it in, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of start off the paper and I'm going to sponge right onto the piece. And for this, I'm using little circular motions. And I'm coming all the way onto the cardstock. I want to leave, the center area kind of the regular cardstock color, but I want to go ahead and bring ink all the way onto that triangle. Give it a nice edge. And when you're going, you can grab some of this ink that you've left on your wax paper or whatever non-porous surface you're using and use that to color in some more. So there you can see the Mango Melody. And then I'm going to come back in with just a little bit of pumpkin pie. And I want to get the pumpkin pie just on the edges of my triangle. So what I will do is I will tap that into my a different sponge. I grabbed another sponge that has a darker orange on it. Tap that into my pumpkin pie. This time I'm going to pick up the triangle and I'm just going to tap the edges. And this way, I'm not getting ink so far onto the piece of triangle, right? The other ink came all the way towards the center here. This time I just want to get that pumpkin pie right on the edges. So that's why I'm holding it up and just kind of flicking the edges. And that just gives it just even a little bit darker orange color on the very edge. So I'll set that aside. I've already done a number of those triangles and they're sitting here waiting to go. I also cut out a circle to be the center of our sun. So this piece is cut from Daffodil Delight cardstock, which means that this time I'm going to start with some Daffodil Delight ink to sponge onto the outside. I'm going to grab that same sponge that I used for the Mango Melody. I'm just going to rub that off on my kind of scrap paper over here and get some of that Mango Melody off. What I do when I'm done is I will take this and I'll wash these and I'll let them dry. But for now, I just kind of want to get most of that ink off before I switch colors. And again, I'm going to start off the edge and I'm going to, in circular motions, just kind of pull that onto my die cut piece. So quick and easy. And again, I can kind of pick up some ink that I've already left on my piece of wax paper and just get a nice orangishness. That's yellow on yellow, but it's still going to be darker than the cardstock, but you still have the brightest spot in the middle. Put my Daffodil Delight aside. pull back out my Mango Melody, and now again, like I did with the pumpkin pie on the other pieces, on the triangle pieces, I'm just going to come in and do the very edge. So I'm going to pick up that circle this time and just sponge the edges. All right, and my circle is ready to go. In addition to my sunshine, I also want to make some clouds. For this, I'm going to be using Whisper White cardstock, and I'm going to be sponging the edges with some Balmy Blue. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn over my piece of wax paper and use the other side, because I don't try not to get any of that yellow or orange onto my pieces of white. We'll see, it's kind of on my fingers. Normally I would just go and wash my fingers and get all that ink off. I will likely get some fingerprints on my Whisper White when I do this, so I have some Whisper White circles already cut out. I did all the die cutting ahead of time so I wouldn't have to spend time in the video. And now I just have another piece of sponge. I'm going to dip this in some Balmy Blue. And again, with little circular motions, I'll just pull that ink onto my white cardstock. And just turn it as I go. And this, I really want to kind of leave quite a bit of white at the center because it is a cloud. So I kind of want to leave a lot of white. So I didn't really pull that in too far, but you can see quick and easy, I just sponged the edges. All right, putting away my Balmy Blue. Let's go ahead and start putting the card together. So I'm going to get rid of that wax paper. Today's card is a slimline card. This is kind of all the rage right now, is these slimline cards. And basically it's a tall and skinny card. So I've cut a piece of paper that is 9 1/4 inches this way by 7 1/2 inches this way. That means I scored it at 3 3/4. So I'm folding this in half, and I have my bone folder to just crease that down the edges. And now you can see this is going to create this tall, skinny card. And I've created this the right size so that it fits in a number 10 business envelope. So I picked up some clearance envelopes at Staples the other day, and you can see this will fit right inside. So, all right, this is actually going to go sideways. So I'm going to lay my cardstock right here. I also have a piece of Balmy Blue cardstock, and you'll see I cut this. It is 9 inches by, let me tell you, I don't even remember now. It is 9 inches by 2 3/4 inches. So it doesn't go all the way down to the end. We're going to leave a spot there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start by putting on my clouds. And here I'm just going to glue down my circles. Now the bottom of the circles are going to overlap the edge of the Balmy Blue. And what we'll do when we're done is we're going to cut those off, because clouds aren't actually circles, right? They kind of float up and are puffy on top, but sometimes often kind of flattish on the bottom. So we're actually just going to glue on the circles, and then we'll cut off the ends later. I'm just going to lay these out a little bit. Start getting an idea of what I want. And you can see all the different size circles I have. Now some of these will get covered up by the sun that we are going to build on top of it, but that's okay. I find it's easier just to go ahead and put the clouds on everywhere that I think I'm going to want them, because just in case the rays, you never know quite which direction they're going to go, and you kind of want to make sure that they're all covered just in case. So just in case you have a little spot that it shows in between some of the triangles, you know, it's just better to have the cloud pieces there instead of having blank spots where there should be clouds and then there's not. So you can see that little circle, I'm just gluing it on top. And I'm not really being very careful with my glue here. Some of the glue is going off the edge of the paper. That's okay. I'll deal with it. So there are all my circles that I have laid on there. Now I'm going to grab some scissors, and I'm going to grab some of my kind of not so good scissors. just because there is glue on the back of here. So if I get glue on my scissors and they get too gunky, I will take some rubbing alcohol and clean them off. But just lining up the edge of the balmy blue with the edge of my scissors to cut this off. And some of those have like 3 layers, so they do take a little bit of a firm hand there to get it cut off. So there you can see my clouds. And now, because this whole card is just really sponged all over, it's got a lot of sponging on it, I'm going to go ahead and just sponge the edges of it too. I just find that this helps pull in the sponging that's on the inside pieces kind of onto the outside too. Makes it all look correct. Oh, and I didn't put down my wax paper. All right, let's bring the wax paper back in. I was wondering why it wasn't working quite as well. That's why. And of course, I used the yellow side. See? So it's a little green up there in the corner. That's okay. We'll just pretend it's super sunny up there. And it might get covered up. I'm not sure. You can hear my squeaky table. Oh my goodness. I think I need to tighten up some of the bolts. So I'm going all the way across the top, and then I'm going to go ahead and grab the edge of those clouds too. Just pull that all together. I'm not going to bother doing the bottom because we're actually going to cover that up. So I'll set that aside. And close up my ink pad. Now I want to build my sun. So the sun takes a little bit of building here. I have 3 different size of triangles. So you can see I have some large orange triangles. I have some medium yellow triangles. I have medium orange triangles. And I have little tiny orange triangles. And these are Mango Melody and these are Daffodil Delight. So I'm just going to start by knowing that my sun is going to go about right there. And I want to lay down my 3 largest triangles. Now these are just going to be kind of outside of the sun. None of them are quite long enough for what we need, especially for the slimline card. So what I'm doing is I'm starting with the largest ones and putting them outside of where the sun is. Don't worry, when we get done, the other ones are going to come in closer and the circle is going to cover up that little edge. So I'm just going to go ahead and lay those on there and decide, yep, that's the placement I want. And then I will go ahead and glue those down as well. So after I get these first 3 triangles on, the largest ones, I'm going to switch to some of the medium orange triangles. And the medium orange triangles are going to go in between. So these are going to go right here in between these larger orange triangles. And I'm going to line the edges, the bottom edges right up the same spot. So I'm going to go ahead and glue those on. Okay, so I have the medium orange ones glued down. Now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to move my circle out of the way, and I'm going to start gluing down some of the medium yellow ones. And these, I'm going to pull them in a little bit closer in Just going to lay them down first to see what it looks like. Make sure I have a placement that I like and that I have enough of them. I don't need to go cut some more. And then I will come in and I will glue these ones down too. So I'm actually going to just move those away. I kind of know where I want them now, and then I'm just going to glue. And you can see I'm pulling that bottom edge in a little bit because we're going to get closer and closer to where the center circle of the sun is. So now that I have put on the medium-sized yellow rays, I will go ahead and grab the smallest of the Mango Melody rays, and I will put those in between. So let's look at what that will look like before I glue them down. And again, I'm just inching these in just a little bit so we make sure that that center circle covers them all up. And you can see there's quite a bit of cardstock that is all getting kind of layered up on top of each other. And I'm skipping, you'll see when I glue these on, I skip kind of every other one and then come back in with a second one just to kind of not get it so they're all stacked up, but they're kind of more evenly glued down. That is the last of my mango rays. They're all glued down, and now I can come back in with my center circle and I'm going to glue that over top. So now it really looks much more like a sun, right? Make sure I got lots of glue on there so it covers up everything. It sticks really well since it's all different heights kind of going on here. And once again, I'm going to come back in and I'm going to cut the bottom of this off. So I'm just holding that in place for just a second, make sure it's really stuck. And it's, of course, sticking to my thing. For now, I'm just going to cut the bottom. Eventually, we're going to cut these top ones too, but I kind of want to cut those after I layer this on my cardstock. On my card base, I should say. So I'm just going to cut the bottom for right now. Sweep those pieces off. So there's my sunshine on my card. Now let's go ahead and build the rest of the card. I have this really thin 1/4 inch strip of pumpkin pie cardstock, and this is going to go across the center of my card. But to tie it in with everything else, I want to sponge it just like I've sponged everything else. So I'm pulling out some pumpkin pie sponging, and for this I'm going to hold it up and flick the edges because it's so skinny. I don't really want to get ink all the way across it, but we'll see what happens. I've left it extra long so I can kind of, I'm holding it between kind of my two top fingers are holding the top, and then my ring finger and my pinky finger and my thumb are holding the bottom, and this kind of holds it tight so I can sponge the edges. I won't worry too much about the ends because I can cut off the ends. Since I just left it full length. A lot of times when I'm building cards like this, I will go ahead and leave some of the layers extra long and then cut them to match the other layers. This way, instead of trying to get them so that they're exactly the same length, and yeah, when you try to do that, you end up with things that are two different lengths, and then you have weird gaps and it just doesn't look right. So I have that all sponged. So let's go ahead and glue. We're going to glue our sunshine onto our card front. This is going to go towards the top, but I am going to leave about 1/8 of an inch border on the top there and on the two sides. So just hold that down for just a second to hold it in place. And you'll see now we'll come in, I will cut the rest of these sun rays off, but I wanted them to extend all the way past the blue and all the way to the border of the card. I like to have this little thin strip of cardstock down here. It just kind of helps tie the edges together so they're not, you know, hanging out looking weird. It kind of just pulls it all together. So I'm just going to go ahead and lay that right on top of all of those layers. And I'm just going to hold that for a second so the glue takes hold, because it's, you know, it's really thick. There are 4 or 5 layers of cardstock in some of areas, and it just, you know, doesn't want to hold quite as quickly as it normally would. So just putting some pressure on there for just a second and get it really so it's held down. All right, now I will come in and I'm going to cut off the top of my sun rays. I'm going to cut off the edge of that pumpkin pie strip and my little sun ray over here. And there is the card front. All right, so let's add a greeting to this. For the greeting for my card, I actually pulled out the stamps from a recent paper pumpkin. So back in, when was it? Was it June? The June paper pumpkin was the Sending Sunshine paper pumpkin, and it had these really great sayings, and I just love them so much that I just pulled that out for the sayings. But there's lots of great sayings in the catalog as well, and I really, you know, you could find whatever you want for it. There's some really great stuff that I think would work great on this card too. It's just not necessarily what I have in my stash. So pulled out these Sending Sunshine from the paper pumpkin. Oops, that was not the one I wanted. I actually want the one that says Sunshine on it. And I'm going to start by stamping the sunshine with Mango Melody ink. So I pull that out. I got the inks here and the stamp, so I'll just stamp it again. Stamping my sunshine with the Mango Melody. And then I'll stamp the Sending with the pumpkin pie. And we'll cut that again. Run that through my Big Shot. And we'll take this off again. And actually, you know what I'm going to do? Because this leaves stitching on both sides, so I'm going to actually cut the top off this direction. And we'll send that back through my Big Shot. No problem. I'll take out that die, and you can see that now it's a much skinnier, right? I cut down the top, so it's not quite as high. This is going to go on the front of my card, and I want to add just a little bit of ribbon too. So I'm sticking my ink pads out of the way because otherwise I will end up with my card in my ink. If I can find my card. Oh, here it is. Does that ever happen to you? You are in the middle of something and you lay down what you're working on, and then you're like, I don't know where that went to. And it's right there underneath stuff, underneath all the junk that has grown on your table. So this is the Forever Fern Trim Combo Pack. And it comes with this really nice soft off-white color ribbon. We're not going to use that. We're actually going to use the gold. Now, this gold trim is really cool. And what's fun is that it's twisted and the bottom will untwist, which is good on your card front. However, you can see I put a piece of tape on here because I didn't want that all untwisting when it wasn't even tied, right? So what I want to do for this one is I actually want to make a double bow. So I'm going to, instead of just tying it, I'm going to cut it the length I want it. So I want it right in here. And actually I'm going to grab a piece of Scotch tape. I'm going to Scotch tape over that. And then I'm going to cut this in the center. It's just going to keep my ends together. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape this down underneath where the greeting is going to go. So that's taped under there. Now I'm going to take my greeting and I'm going to pop that right on top. And I'm going to put this on with some Stampin' Dimensionals, of course, because I love Stampin' Dimensionals. I can't have a project without some Stampin' Dimensionals. And for this little size, I'm actually going to use some big ones and some little ones just to make sure I got some good coverage. So pull off those backs. And I'm going to try to center this on my card front. It's kind of hard. These slimline cards, I find it's hard to center things. It's hard to see. So lay that down. Does that look good? Yeah. Oh, and of course I forgot. You know what? I did this before too. So you'll notice, remember how I talked about there's 4 or 5 different layers of cardstock kind of built up here? So I want to make sure that I put some extra Stampin' Dimensionals on the bottom of my greeting because the top of the greeting is going to be popped up on here and the bottom of the greeting is going to be all the way down on this cardstock. So to make up for the different levels, I'm just going to put an extra Stampin' Dimensional down there. Now, let's see if this is centered. Pretty good. And then I'm going to glue that down. Now I did say I want to add a double bow. So I'm going to grab my ribbon again. And I'm going to grab about what I need to make a bow. Take a piece of tape. Tape down that end again. Just cut it. Now I'm going to slide this underneath the cord that we taped down. So it's going to look like it's tied on there, but actually you and I know that it's taped underneath. I just find this the easier way to do a double bow because otherwise it's just hard to get it right. So tie that bit. Come in with this. And with this thin cord, I just feel like the double bow, it gives it a little bit more volume to it. Just kind of has more presence on your card. Feels like it needs it. So pull that tight. Whenever I'm doing a double bow, I do like to do, this is a little trick that I do. I like to pull one of the loops on each side. I like to pull it down closer than the other one. That way they don't stick together. It forces them to be kind of, you can see that it's double. So that's just a little trick. And then I can come and cut off my ends. And now we can go ahead and let that kind of unroll. And you can see it will start to unravel. And I don't even need to do it. It will do it on its own. So there we go. A fun slimline card using almost no stamping at all, just some different die cut shapes. Thank you again for joining me today. Just a reminder, all of the dimensions can be found on my website. The link is in the description to the video, and you can also shop for all the projects or see the supply list on my Stampin' Up shop, which the link to that is also in the description of this video. If you have any other questions or need help with anything, please let me know. I'd love to help you out. Until next time, bye-bye.